Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Annette Eberhart, and I'm your host. Today, joining me, I have Tasheba and Libenny. Today, we're going to be talking about something that shapes the future of our children, families, and educators: advocacy in early childhood education. Advocacy is more than speaking up, it's about action. It's about making sure every child, no matter ability, background, or setting, has access to quality early learning. In this conversation, we're going to be discussing a few topics: advocacy for children with disabilities, pre K and VPK, as well as family child care. So, before we jump into the conversation, I'm going to propose a question, and I'm also going to answer the question first. And we're going to allow each of our guests to answer their questions after they give a brief introduction. The question is, what does advocacy in early childhood education look like today? This is going to be our icebreaker, ladies. So I'm going to take the turn first and then give you all the time to answer the question as well. So for me, I think the advocacy in early childhood education today is about using data and lived experiences to inform decisions that impact children, families, and educators. And it also looks like educators being at the table or inventing their own tables to establish their own voices to help shape policies that impact our field today. What are your thoughts? Who wants to go first?
I can go ahead and go first. First off, thank you so much for having me. Um, Firstly, I think advocacy in early childhood education today, I think is really about speaking up and taking action so that every child, no matter whether they're typical or with a disability, really is able to get the support that they need to succeed. And that kind of looks like having educators working to include all children in their classroom, not necessarily separating them, and really collaborating and working with the families to understand their rights and just making sure that they are able to get the help that they need.
Thank you. Thank you. What about you, Ms. Toshiba?
Yes, both of you guys touched on the amazing points about the data and then also educators being a part of the children that's in their classroom. But one of my points for advocacy in early childhood is teachers, educators, whatever your title is in the classroom, in the building, needs to come out of the building at times and really voice what's happening, because a
I
lot of
agree.
times bills and things are put in place and no one knows what's really happening. They get a little what we'll call like a screenshot of what's happening in the classroom, but they don't really know what's happening. So those who are the professionals that's in the classroom on a day-to-day should come out the classroom, be a part of that table you talked about, and really advocate for the kids.
I agree. Thank you. I like that. Thank you, ladies, both. And since we're talking about children with unique abilities and uplifting our voices and speaking up in order to bring about change in policy to systems that they have surrounding our field, what policies, Liberty, do you think are most impacting young children with disabilities right now?
hmm That's a really good question. So I think, a major one that a lot of us in the education world know about is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, also known as IDEA. And, the purpose of it is being able to guarantee early intervention for children through birth, through age 3, to receive special education services. And, it really emphasizes that access to free and appropriate public education, and also that being able to give them the most least restrictive environment and being able to put them in a place where they're going to succeed and feel supported.
Thank you. Thank you. I totally agree with you on that. What about you, Toshiba? Do you have anything to add to that?
No, definitely what she's saying, that is very important with the children with disabilities, and also understanding the IEP perspective of it, because a lot of times I think educators and don't understand the IEP, and they don't really read or reevaluate the IEP when they come into the classroom to be able to give that individual plan for the child. So when we create in spaces, yes, we have multiple children and we want them to be in a space where they are included, but we also need to understand what is their individual plan while they're in that classroom, and making sure we're giving them the full effect of everything that they need. But it goes back to where teachers need that support as well. So I ask you, Libby, what is one of the challenges that teachers and families are facing now in the classroom or coming into an early educational space with children with disabilities?
Yeah, 100%. So I think the one that really comes to mind first that I think would be perfect for both not only educators but also families is just the complex system of IDEA and IEPs. Like it's difficult not only as for an educator, but imagine a family to have to navigate through the multiple agencies and the confusing processes and all these long wait lists in order to get their child the support that they need. And I think as a educator myself, as in a VPK inclusion classroom, that's something that I face on a daily basis, having to deal with multiple departments and having to kind of want to help my families, especially my families with IEPs, and not being able to do so at at a large scale, or even sometimes a small scale, because sometimes things are just out of my control. And I think a lot of educators that teach students with special needs can probably say the same thing. And a lot of families don't really know how to navigate this. It's never easy, being told that your child has a disability and then not really knowing how you can help them.
Right. Right. Well, what would you recommend? What would you tell educators on how they can advocate for more inclusive systems?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously number one, in the classroom, being able to use inclusive practices and adapt teaching for all learners. And obviously with that, we know, and I also know that, with that has to come, some more attention into professional development for teachers. We need
Yeah.
to be able
Yes.
to push to give teachers access to more resources that are going to be able to help them support students with disabilities, especially in classrooms like my own, where I'm teaching VPK and I'm also teaching students with disabilities, and I have to meet the requirements for my VPKers, but I also have to meet the requirements for my students with disabilities. But how can I do that when I don't have everything that I need? And I
Right.
think what the key point is, being able to provide and emphasize this investment into the professional development and into the workforce of early childhood education and the system that we have, because we've been living in a very fragmented system,
Yes.
especially when it comes to kids with disabilities. And I think it's time for it to be emphasized and pushed more.
I
Wow.
I couldn't agree with
Yeah.
you more.
Me too.
Yes.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely have to put forth a little more education around for teachers as well as parents, right? So they can have a better
Yeah.
understanding on how they can advocate for
Right.
for a better experience for their children
A
overall.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, ladies. Thank you for that. Let's segue into VPK policy and advocacy. Um, what happens in at the legislative level shows up in our classrooms every day. So, what is one of the most impactful policies that you think is impacting VPK at this time, Tasheba?
So I'll just bring it back to just not just the policy of the start in amount of children that's when you have a VPK classroom. So coming from family childcare, a childcare center, you're trying to get 4 children into your program. You're advertising for those 4 children, and everybody is not fortunate enough to be able to gather 4 children at one time. Say you just opening up, or you have a family childcare that you had 3 and you're ready to get in the kids. Those 3-year-olds are very well equipped to be able to get into that VPK program, but you just can't get that one. I believe that it should be, if you have one, the tool is for one. Like, don't make it exclusive just for 4
Right.
children to get started with. So I think that's one of the policies that I feel and I have heard over time that multiple educators feel that it should be, if I already have them, let me continue with them. Let me use that curriculum and then advanced curriculum. Because if I have some 3-year-olds that's at a 4-year-old level, imagine how they're going to be when they actually enter into the VPK segue of things. So that needs to understand, because these kids, when I tell you, forget disabilities, they are so advanced.
Yes, yes.
Listen, they probably can take this podcast that we're doing currently and edit it and do all type of things with it, and
Yes.
we limit them. We
Right.
truly limit their
Yes.
abilities, because it's like we are so tool based, like how everything has to flow. It has to be like this because someone gave us a manuscript and say this is what we got to do with the kids by this age. If they
Right.
two and they can write, let them write. If they two
Right.
and they can edit this podcast, let them edit the podcast. Why are we
Exactly.
limiting them if we
For
are
their
in a
Yeah.
creativity.
and I thought that's what we was doing. I really thought that's what we was doing. And in the policy, um, influencers and makers are not allowing that to be a part of the curriculum. Like, let
Mm.
them be, because they're gonna learn and they're gonna explore and they're gonna do things that's gonna blow our minds no matter what we're doing. So our future policymakers are gonna be the ones that's doing all the innovative things. So that's one of the things I just say, that why we have to have a cap on how we start with our 4-year-olds.
Hmm.
I agree. I
Yes.
agree.
So you brought up a really good point, and I honestly clock it. I loved it. I loved hearing it because I definitely agree with a lot of what you were saying. Um, Kind of to segue into the next question, how do you think legislative decisions really impact educators and families within VPK, and kind of like how the program is?
I think one of the greatest things is that VPK is open to everybody, no matter how your income base is. So that is a
And it's
huge,
free. It's free.
yes,
Hmm.
yes. It's free, but it's like it's the way it's sold, right? And it really
Right.
helps. It really supports children getting ready for that kindergarten setting, because now they kind of get that structure, right? But then if they in a program where they can get that creativity and it can lead into other things. Imagine when they go into kindergarten, how wide and how huge the world will be for them, right?
Right.
But with legislators, I just feel that a lot of these policies, and we go back to it again, coming into the programs, seeing all the different programs, understanding the difference between a family child care program, a child care center program, and people who have multiple programs.
Mm.
Understanding the difference of those will make a difference when they making policies for VPK, because everybody program is totally different, the structure
Different.
different, and
Yes.
how
Right.
they teaching is so different. And then when we have
Hmm.
so many kids, as we spoke on before, with children with disabilities, I have been in programs where you couldn't tell who, what, and what IEP and what disability was going on,
Yeah.
because that educator, that professional, that teacher ran that classroom so unique that you
Right.
didn't know what was really happening. We didn't label the child. We labeled the
Right.
shelves. We labeled
Yeah.
the toys. We didn't label
Exactly.
the child.
Yes.
So I just say, as legislators, they need to come in and really see what's happening. And then as parents, being that voice for your children and having that impact for the program that your children are in. Because telling me as an educator or an owner of a program, I'm doing a great job. But when you go and vote, that's where it really matters at.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
100.
Absolutely.
Wow, that was amazing. Yeah.
I
So
agree.
I just look at it and just giving, a little bit of my own personal story with it. I'm a mother, so I have kids went through the VPK program. 4 of my children have went through the VPK program, and I was able to, really see the difference. But then I took out the time because I understood the system. I understood the growth and the ability of my kids. So when they went through school, going to kindergarten, first grade, they excelled. So having parents to understand that it's so important, even though people look at it and say, well, you're educated, you already know, you can know too. You can
Mhm.
know, you can take some of the
Yes.
classes that we take. You can be involved into the system because we need families, we need parents, we need those
Yes.
that speak up and advocate for early education because we are your child's second teacher. The
Mhm.
parent
You are
is
the
the
first.
first teacher.
Yes.
I
So
agree.
we
I
need them
agree.
to be that voice and that impact
They got
in
to
the
do their
world.
research.
They have to,
Yeah.
and they got to be involved. So we really want that.
Yes.
So my story is I just think that as a parent, we have to show up, we have to vote correctly, and we have to be a part of the system in a system change.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing that as a personal story. I love sharing lived experiences. I think that that is so impactful. So if you had to share that with legislators, share your story with legislators, how would you recommend that to parents? The importance of sharing your stories. How impactful do you think they are? I remember when we were in Tallahassee, and we're waiting for the meeting, the budget
Yeah.
meeting, and we had saw so many people lined up, and we had people asking like, why are some of the people lined up out here? And they were there to share their story,
Yes.
right? For whatever the bill it was that they wanted to see pass, they were there to advocate and share the reason why this bill was important to pass. So how would you impart that to parents?
They all have a story. So if it's a good or a bad experience, we all have a story, right? And we
Right.
can't not include the bad experience because that helped policy change. So
Yes.
a lot of times we
It
don't
helps
want to
shape
hear
the
a bad
future.
experience. We don't want to hear it because we're
Right.
so afraid that
Mhm.
if she tell that the child didn't excel after the BPK program, what does that look like for my program? Right?
Mhm.
But it's like, how can we change the manuscript? How can we change
Right.
the tool? How can we be more effective with the rules and the regulations that's there now? Because remember, BPK been around since 2005, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So what has happened from 2005 and 2026? A
A
A
whole
lot.
lot
lot.
has changed.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's only going to
So
change even more.
Yeah.
and then
That's
we
good.
talk about what Livian said is that, we have kids that has more awareness of disabilities. We are more aware of it now. It's always been there, but we're
Yeah.
more aware of things now. So maybe the tool needs to change to be able to fit into what we have going on now. Yes, a lot of people try to take away technology, but that's where we're going. We're innovative now. Think they're more hands-on and creative. They're using their hands and rebuilding things. So
Right.
parents are, it's okay to share the bag. It's how you give it. So the policies can change.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. That was powerful.
That was.
Snap, snap,
Yeah.
snap, snap. I love it. I love conversating about early childcare education because that's what I do, right?
Yeah.
Those are my roots. That's my foundation. So family childcare is next on the list,
Oh,
and again, that's my passion.
so yes, let me come over and take and be the little host for a little while. Well, they say the host with the most. I'm gonna take your spot for a minute. So
Is that
let's
right?
shift
You're
it
gonna
into
take over the
family
show, Mr.
childcare.
Sheba?
Yes, let's shift it into family childcare, and one of the most essential, but often overlooked, and we know it's overlooked,
Mhm.
Yes,
parts of the
absolutely.
system. So, Miss Annette, how do policies impact family childcare educators' abilities to stay in business?
Wow, that's a powerful question. I think policies directly influence sustainability.
Mm,
When reimbursement rates through school readiness do not meet the true cost of care, educators are left to fill the gap. And over time, it becomes challenging to continue to stay afloat. On the regulatory side, we have licensing, and it normally mandates, for health and safety standards.
yeah.
And these are important as well. But when policies are not fully designed with family child care in mind, it can create additional operational strains. So I think that combination of underfunding and misalignment makes it difficult for educators to maintain and grow their family child care programs, which impacts their ability to stay in business And in recent years, we have seen so many educators closing their doors because of this.
Yeah, that has been a huge
Yeah.
impact. Because I just got some statistics on family child care, and maybe about a year ago or a year or so ago, we was like at 2,400 and say 50 educators that was in a family child care. Now we down to like 2,300. So
Yeah.
imagine, and that's just in the state of Florida. So we don't know what's going across the United States, but the impact of those laws, those policies, those things that has really shifted and changed. And then also, I asked you this in family child care, the age of the educators, has that been a huge impact with family child care?
Oh yeah, because we have our elderly educators that are still in business because they actually have to be in business. You know, they can't close their doors. You know, it's normally a retirement age at what, 62,
Yeah,
65.
Almost
And
gonna be
because,
67 soon.
yeah, because of the cost, cost of living, it doesn't match.
yeah,
And it's hard for them to sustain themselves with the school readiness payment rates because most of the educators depend on that federal funding to support their programs for parents as well.
yeah,
So yeah, we don't have a lot of younger educators coming into the field. I think there's been like, well, what I know in Florida, like a stagnant. I don't see as
Hmm.
many younger educators coming into the field as business owners, maybe as teachers. But when it comes to family childcare, we don't see a lot of that. And I don't think that it's promoted the way that it should be. I think that we should, because it's,
Hmm.
to strategize it more for educators to understand that they can not only do what they enjoy by teaching children, but you can also become an entrepreneur and start in your business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, why do you think young people nowadays aren't really going into the family childcare business?
Because the money, again, is financially, it's hard to sustain yourself in this field. And we all know that. A lot of us say that, we're here because we love the children or we love what we do. But in actuality, when it comes to
yeah,
sustaining the business and sustaining the practice in order to continue to provide that quality service, I think that, legislators, as Tasheba said earlier, need to really come into the environment and see what we actually do, see what it's actually done with these children, because the children today become the legislators of tomorrow.
Yeah.
that's right.
And we have to invest in the quality care so that, we can have good teachers providing the quality care.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they want to stay around.
That's
Uh,
very true.
so, just because I know you just a little bit, you was on the news in Tampa, and you was
I
talking about
was.
reimbursement rates. So, just give us just a quick, screenshot of what you feel about the reimbursement rates currently, and how just family home has been impacted because of the reimbursement rates.
Yeah, so the reimbursement rates, you're right. When the news lady was talking to me, she has two children. She had two children of her own, and she was explaining how much she spends in childcare, the cost of care. And we hear this a lot. Childcare is expensive, but when we flip it, and we may have an infant in care, and the infant we may charge $300. Depends on what the cost of care is in the area, your zip code, really. Um, if you divide that by 5 days and the hourly rate, that we're going to make, it's only like $3 and some change, per hour. So a lot of times when I'm having interview conversations with parents or families that are starting, I sometimes have to go that route to just kind of give them a visual, because I'm like, would you work for $3 an hour? Would you work for $5 an hour?
No.
Right. So this is the cost. This
Yeah,
is what we are being
Yeah.
paid an hour. When you look at the school readiness subsidy
Hmm.
that they are providing, it's really not a whole lot of money. And if you do the private pay rate, where I may be able to get the $300 if that's what I charge for an infant for care. And that's low. That's because that's where the area of children and families that I serve is low income. So if I say, oh, I'm going to charge, because somebody else is in a different area and I want to charge, I heard they're charging 600 for an infant. I'm not going to get that here,
No.
And then it's
Right.
hard for parents to even pay their parent fees. When you have subsidy, they only pay a certain amount of your child care. So parents still are obligated to pay the other portion of it. And a lot of times they can't afford it,
Yeah.
So it's really challenging. And, you really have to kind of take your highs and lows when you're dealing with families, because you understand you're supporting a need. We are a very important piece when it comes to the workforce, because again, family child care just offers diversity. We meet parents where they are, families where they are, because they work flexible schedules, and not all centers are open and available to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But especially in our state of Florida, where, we're, from what I've seen, it's a big push of family choice and parent choice. And obviously family childcare centers is one of those big pieces that doesn't really get the attention that honestly it deserves. And I think
Right.
it
I
could
agree.
help even things out across the board, and not only just a public school setting or a private setting, but also bringing family childcare into the game, and just seeing how we can help everybody.
Exactly. I think
Yeah.
I think the policymakers just need to take a educational tour from early
Yes.
education on up, right?
Yes.
To
Yes.
kind of see how it really operates. Because I think that, I know that when we get into adulthood, we just forget about, the early years,
Yeah.
because why would I think about that? I'm not in that space anymore. I'm where I am. I'm creating bills and I'm passing laws and things like that. So it's up to us as the teachers, as the parents, to bring awareness to how these systems impact, children and families, as well as educators
Right.
who are
At the end of
providing
the day,
this quality care.
that's what we want to do. We want to shine the light for the kids. I feel like that's the ultimate common theme that a lot of us, educators, parents, and providers alike feel.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it seems like we kind of like bring it all together, because I was going to say, what is the biggest gap in advocacy right now? And I think it's like, I was thinking what we was all saying, like what Annette just said as well. The legislators going back, like take off your adult hat, put it to the side, put on your little sneakers, go play in the mud. Let's have an adult child day. That's what we would call it. Like have an adult child
Yeah.
day. Like let's get dirty. Let's go back and we do the chalk. We do everything. And remember that when you walked into that child care program, if it was a family home, a child care center, when you walked in, the first thing you smelled was the breakfast, or how great the inside smell. Like just
Yeah.
knowing that aroma of that good smelling. And I always tell people that I can remember being in preschool and having my first well, they call it porridge or cream of wheat. I always smelled that
Yes.
when I walked into the building, and it was so fresh. So it
Brings
gave
back
me
good
that,
memories.
they bring back good memories. So it gives me that feeling of the with the three little pigs, and like the story and the porridge and so I always tap back into my childhood. What is something that you guys tap back into that give you that memory of being that child, if you did go into an early educational space, and that will bring you back to saying, I don't mind getting down and playing with the chalk, or even why we even came into the field? Because see, some way those educators impacted us to come into the field that we in today.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to go then?
Yeah, sure. I think for me, I was a Head Start baby. I
Mm,
born and raised in New York City, and I went to Head Start in the Big Apple. Obviously, New York City has a lot of options of early childhood care. Well, now, but in my time, it was pretty much Head Start, what we had. And I think the biggest thing I remember is coming in. Like you said, we didn't do the porridge, but we definitely did have those breakfasts where you would walk in and you would smell the eggs, or you would see the
mm,
cereal, and you would see just like walking in there and just knowing that there were teachers there who cared.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that was the reason I got into childcare. I come from a family of educators that my grandfather was a teacher and a principal back in our home country for over 30 years. My mom is a paraprofessional now, working with pre-K, ESC, and typical students. And I think that all these little lived experiences is what drew me to the field and drew me to really push for this advocacy for my children, because I saw it growing up, how
Yeah.
difficult it can be sometimes. And I see it now with my students, with the students I've had, how difficult it can be. And I think the biggest thing that I could say is advocacy isn't optional. It shouldn't be an option. It
No.
isn't something that should be an if, maybe, when. It's something that needs to happen now, and it should have happened before.
Yeah.
Inclusion, access, quality, they don't just happen on their own. People have to do something about it. They have to talk. They have to take
Right.
action, because nothing's
Absolutely.
going to change if people don't do something about it. And I
That's right.
think that requires intentional effort, whether that's in the classroom, the communities, or like you guys said, in the policy level. But things got to change, and if they don't happen soon, it's going to happen eventually.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And Libby, my story kind of is similar to yours. My mother was a preschool teacher. My sister is a teacher. She's been teaching for 35 years at higher level. And for me, I did go to a childcare program. I don't know if it was Head Start, but I remember we lived in a tall building. I'm from Connecticut, and we lived in a tall housing building, and the daycare was right on the bottom floor. So
Mm.
we didn't have to go far. They offered it in the building, but I always felt safe when I was in that space. But I
Mm-hmm.
had large adenoids, and when I would hear the loud noises like motorcycles or anything loud, I would just grab my ears. And I remember being on the playground and just screaming, and crying about, just the fear of hearing the noise. And I remember my teacher always, head buried in her tummy, consoling me because, I'm
Oh.
having that experience. So yeah, you know, early child care is very dear to my heart, and children with unique abilities as well, because I had some challenges developmentally when I was growing up. And back then, you know, you didn't have IEPs and you didn't have people who cared about making sure that you got the care and services, additional services that you needed. It always appeared to be behavior. And there were times when I was acting out, but I was acting out because I was embarrassed about certain things, that whether the teacher was putting you on the spot or, asking you to do something that you were like, I'm not really comfortable in doing. So it's really about some of the things that we shared in this conversation. And that's the key thing I would say, it's educating the teachers, educating parents,
Mm-hmm.
and also allowing them to know that it's okay to be where you are,
Yep.
Yeah.
having this experience, as long as you get in the support that you need. And sometimes I think that's also where the challenges come in, because the parents are not receiving the support that they need in order to accept the challenges that are coming with having children with unique abilities, or just children in general. It's a
Mm-hmm.
challenge. So the village mindset needs to come back into place, because I think
That's right.
that, you know, um, somewhere along the line, we've kind of lost that in some areas.
Yeah.
So I think that it's important to be okay with needing assistance, be okay with just being aware of
Mm-hmm.
the policies, and also aware of the services that are here to support.
Being able to ask for help. I think
Yes, for
that's,
sure.
and taking accountability. I think,
Right,
you
right.
know,
And like we said, advocacy doesn't start in the Capitol, it starts with us.
yep.
Yeah.
Do you all have any last minute words that you would like to share? This has been an awesome conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I think us using our voice, and
Mm-hmm.
having this opportunity to use our voice, and from New York to Connecticut to Florida. Like, this is so different because sometimes you don't know where people start at to
Right.
know how we all got to this space, because we don't have those type of conversations. We just go off of, oh, you in the field, oh, you doing what I'm doing it. So it's
Mhm.
never, where did you start? So I'm glad
Mm.
that we had um our starts to be where we at today. So I really am thankful to be in this space with two other women that has some connection to it. So when we go out and advocate, our stories really matter. Like because we understand it. We understand being in that nurturing, loving, having those disabilities that we didn't know what they was. And it's so great how you pulled
Right.
that out, Annette, because it was some things of, fear or embarrassment or things that have happened to all of us in a space that we felt uncomfortable as young children. So now when we advocate for those that things are happening to in our spaces, our voice really carries. Now they say in that room, like,
Want to
Exactly.
do better.
it's an empty room, but it gets really loud because our
Right.
Wow.
voice really
Absolutely.
carries. So
Yes.
we're carrying our voice from the classroom, from the community. And hey, we all been to Tallahassee, so let's get to DC. Let's go to DC
Yes.
and carry our
Exactly. Let's
voices
take it
there.
further. Yes.
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 No, 100%. And just
I love
connecting.
it.
Connection. I think, I really enjoyed my conversation with y'all, and I think connection is a really big piece. Connecting policy to practice, families and educators to resources, and just making sure, like Tasheba just said, making sure everyone's voices is heard. The louder the better. And like I
The
said
more, the
earlier,
better as
Yeah,
well.
right.
more.
Like I said
Yeah.
earlier,
Yeah.
if it isn't gonna happen now, trust and believe it's gonna happen sooner or later, because I think we have a very riled up generation at the moment.
I
And
agree.
multiple age generations. So it's not
Yeah.
Yes.
like,
Yes.
it's really, I'm telling you, just going and doing the things that we've been doing over the years and connecting, like the age gaps but the people, we really believe in this. Like, it's
Hmm.
nothing when you make a phone call and say, hey, I need you to write a letter, I need you to do this, I need you, it's like, what you need? Boom, boom, boom. Everybody's on it. So
Right.
it's that wide range of ages that I'm just so, I, that's what impacts me the most, to see everybody getting up and doing what they need to do to make the change happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree.
Mm.
I truly agree. And I'm so grateful that we've been able to have this time together, ladies. I appreciate your insight, your perspective, your professionalism. And we definitely have to do this again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, ladies. Thank you so much. And thank you to our listeners for joining us today.